This is the 8-9 Combo.
This is the 8-9 Combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And, mate, who would be a defence coach right now? 97 tries in 10 games of Super Rugby Pacific to start 2025.
For some of those defensive coaches, the final whistle couldn't come soon enough. I do want to point out that the average amount of time in nanoseconds by which each day here on Earth is longer than the preceding day is 47 nanoseconds. You might ask me, what is a nanosecond? Well, it's a billionth of a second. So 47 billionths of a second. But it does add up, and no one should say they don't have enough time. Running out of time. We all have more time every day. Also, Mao Nanu, maybe he's a nanoseconds guy because he just signed with too long at age 42. Borrowed time. This guy cannot stop.
Age is just a number. We have got a seriously great rugby chat with Nils Braude coming up. He's the man who oversees everything you eat and drink at Allianz Stadium at Twickenham. And we can't wait to get into what will be a fascinating discussion. But we start like we always do with cheers and jeers. And the twist this year is that the jeerer decides whether we're jeering or double cheering.
So far, we're very cheery, aren't we?
We have been very cheery. I like it.
Yeah.
I actually quite like it. I'm leading off. I actually was also going to applaud Martin Nonu for signing on as injury cover at Toulon. It'll be his third stint there at age 42. Age is just a number. But
nano years.
Nano years. I can't go past the Western Force. Their first win in Canberra, their first away win in 2 years, and just the way that they were able to overcome being down to 13, camp down at their own end to get back upfield, score the match winner, and then the way they held out that game to seal the win for 2.5 minutes was just incredible. And they, I'm actually really pleased for them to see the credit and the headlines that they're actually getting this week. It's been really cool to see.
That is very magnanimous of you, if I may say.
Yeah, they well deserved it.
Tough.
Well deserved it.
Well, I want to keep the good feelings and good vibes going, so I'm not going to jeer anybody. I'm going to cheer Matt Sherratt for giving Adam Jones carte blanche to pick a front row. Nicky Smith, Elliot D, Will Drift John, what a name. Matt Sherratt for giving Ireland fits at scrum. Matt Sherratt for bringing laughter back to the practices. Close your eyes session. He said to his players, close your eyes and think of Ireland. And everyone could think of what Ireland would do. Then he said, close your eyes and think of us. So no one knew. And so he fixed that. He's a tracksuit coach. I want to cheer Matt Sherratt for bringing tears back to the bus on the way to Cardiff. Apparently he choked up and couldn't even talk. About picking a 10 at a 10 and a 12 and a 12 and a 13 and a 13. All coaches of the world unite. Follow Matt Sherratt. Pick your players in the positions that they're used to playing, and then throwing Ellis me looked like a child in at the wing. Me in the corner, me in the spotlight, me losing my possession. Russ Petty with an all-time wonderful.
That's one of the great rugby tweets. You've got to say that was.
And then fantastic. I just love the idea that what Matt Sherratt brought back was this idea of a 9 floating naturally. About a 45-degree angle, and then bringing two big forwards into it instead of the 10. So he had short or out the back, and then he had Gareth Anscombe and Ben Thomas lurking in the back. It was an interesting, unique position to put in. It wasn't what Ireland was ready for, and also I think being brave. Matt Sherratt could have entered this game thinking, let's minimize, let's try to keep it within 50. Yeah, he said. Hell to leather. Let's be 18 all with a few minutes to play.
Yeah. Let's see if we can give Ireland a headache, and they certainly did that. So that's a good shout. I like that. And actually, there's an interesting little period coming up for Wales and who they pick as coach, but that is another chat for another day. A quick message before we get into this week's ep. If you are listening to the 8-9 Combo via Spotify or Apple Pods or any of the podcast platforms, just really quickly go and hit the subscribe or the follow button or whatever you need to hit. And if you're watching on YouTube, just hit the red subscribe button down there in that bottom corner, just like Alan Taylor and just like Jason Lowry have done in the last week or so. And welcome aboard to them. You won't miss an episode, and the numbers climbing keeps us having great rugby chats every week. If you've ever gone to the rugby or any big venue event for that matter, and wondered what goes on behind the scenes to get that bucket of chips you're about to tuck into your hands, then we're about to hopefully get all those questions answered. We're really pleased to welcome to the 8-9 Combo the Managing Director of Twickenham Experience Limited at Allianz Stadium in London, Nils Braude. Welcome along, Nils.
Morning, gents. How are you all?
We're very well.
Excellent.
We're very well. This is going to be an interesting chat. We were talking just before we got recording. This is one of these topics that we've always wanted to get into. It was going to be the hard topic to get into because, we know lots of rugby people, but we don't know people like you. We don't know groundsmen. We don't know security people, but we've managed to get it in. We've managed to link you up. So we're really fascinated by what goes on in the background and how much work is done behind the scenes in order to get that bucket of chips, because it is fair to say a fair bit happens before we pay for them at the kiosk, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a lot happens, and when you get there, it all seems to go seamlessly. But it's a challenge to get there. But yeah, we always seem to.
We were just saying before that you only ever hear about food when at rugby stadiums, at venues, when it goes wrong. So you are literally in the business of no news is good news.
Absolutely. And obviously a winning team helps the food taste better.
Yeah,
so you are originally from Durban, is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. Durban, South Africa.
So before we launch into all this food talk, because I got hungry doing my notes for this episode, where is the best curry in Durban? Let's go high and low. Let's go all the way up, and then let's go, takeaway in the newspaper.
Oh,
takeaway curry in newspaper.
Yeah, just stuffed into like a big wad.
The high end's probably tougher to pick in Durban. They're all really good, right? So, and almost the rougher the better in Durban. But as a teenager growing up in Durban, Johnny's Rotties over in the Pretoria was a firm favourite after a night out. Lots of chips and cheese covered in a really hot curry sauce and wrapped up in a roti was the way to go.
Nice.
Then obviously a good old bunny chow at any of the good pubs. Probably a favourite of mine is the George in Umhlanga Rocks. Going for a pub, a bunny chow there is always special.
See, I was going bunny chow from Gounden's takeaway, the quarter mutton. And then if I'm going to spend too much money, then I'm going to the Umhlanga Rocks, but I'm going to the oyster box, looking out at the lighthouse.
Top end. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Beautiful hotel. Beautiful.
Yeah, you're most likely run into Marco Massotti.
I just had a piece of toast and some cornflakes.
So now every time I've gone to Twickenham, there's been some kind of angle involving South Africans, and so you go through this kind of maze of streets in Southwest London, and there's guys selling boerewors and droewors and biltong and everything on the way in. And it's almost like by the time you get to the stadium, you're full. And by the way, Brett, there's free sauce everywhere. Giant canisters of it.
Yeah, hot
topic.
topic.
You can get bobotie, roti roll, you can get slap chips, you can get brandy coke, whatever you want. But then I found when I got into the Allianz Twickenham Stadium that the food was magical too. Tell me about that, because I gotta say, having been in the high cuisine of the French, that was miserable. The World Cup. It was just nothing to eat inside the stadium. It was terrible. It was boring. But Twickenham is like, there's pies from North Yorkshire. There's Lancashire veggies, Cheshire butter. There's all kinds of black pudding, sausage rolls. How did you come up with the food offerings? And is this driven by Twickenham man and his insatiable appetite for something new?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Unfortunately, stadiums aren't renowned for food, right? And that's just the world over. Stadiums aren't very good at food. But I think Twickenham does kind of buck that trend a little bit. And we took a stance a good few years ago now to really bring street food into the venue rather than trying to cater for 80,000 people with what stadiums do badly is a single product, a hot dog or pie or nachos and something. They do the same thing over and over around the venue, and it's not particularly good because it's done by casual staff that are just there to earn a few pounds and service people and go home. We decided to kind of expand that and look at street food operators who are passionate about what they do and are recognized for their value and their quality and their product on the high street. So if you go into central London, there's lunch markets and street food markets all over the place. And it was about how do we bring those guys into the venue. And we're really lucky at Twickenham where we have an external concourse. It's kind of it's open to the air, and we can put all sorts of units out there, and we can change it around for the match that we're playing. So like you said, we can have a South African lineup when the South Africans come. We can have an Australian lineup when the Australians come, and the French. We can tailor the offer accordingly, and that gives us some real ability to flex the offer. And these street food guys coming in is generally owner operated, so they own their own unit. Mm-hmm. They're passionate about what they do. They do a single item or one or two items on that unit, and that's all they do. And they're doing it to drive the value into that product, and therefore they can charge a high price for it, and that just allows you to expand that offer completely. So we do everything, like you said, from Yorkshire puddings filled up with roast meats and mash and gravy through to Korean fried chicken and South African samosas and peri-peri chicken. So it's just a complete overhaul of what stadium catering is known for, and using people's strengths on the high street and just bringing it inside and giving people what they recognize on a day-to-day basis and allowing them to enjoy it.
How do you make that work then for those operators? Like, what's the incentive for them? Are you paying them a contract rate for the day? Are you giving them a margin on everything they sell? Like, how do you make it worthwhile for them? Because that's a really fascinating way that you've put it together.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's because they own and operate their own units. They are responsible for providing their own product, their own service, their own food, etc. So they collect all their own revenue and they pay a rental. It's a kind of commission based. So we pick the best ones to drive the best value, and that drives the commission back to the venue. But in essence, they keep their own revenue, and they have a cost in coming to the venue as a rental, if you like. So they rent the space. Yeah. They pay us a percentage of their revenue, and that drives them to want to do better. So the more they make, the better they are.
Do you have much say then on price for the consumer? Because I can imagine that the price they might charge on the high street is probably going to be different to what they charge inside the stadium. They've got to cover new costs and things like that. So do you have an element of control to make sure that those prices don't go up too much, and that what we're paying inside the stadium is reasonable?
Yeah, obviously we keep an eye on it, but it tends to be true market forces, so supply and demand. If someone's coming into the stadium and selling a good burger for twice the price of the good burger next door to him, he's not going to sell very many of those burgers, right? Yeah. So you've got to have a comparable product across the portfolio, and if everybody's selling similar quality or a product that's as good as itself, you have to provide it at a competitive rate. So it tends to be self-managing, but clearly we keep an eye on it that there is some parity across the board, and people aren't trying to lowball others and or charge too much. So we do a quality check. We make sure that what people are paying or what is being charged for a product is recognizable on the high street. And if you went to the same operator, it might be £1 or £2 or £3 more expensive or cheaper at different venues. It's certainly got to represent value, and you got to walk away from eating that product thinking that was really good, not thinking that was really expensive. And there's a key difference in that piece, right? That value for money is key from a customer perspective. And Harry, you've been to Twickenham. You've probably eaten in some of those units, and you walk away. You should be walking away thinking that was really good. My hands are really messy. Where's my beer? And not thinking I've just spent a lot of money, right? So, and that's what we aim for.
It's legit. Like, there was a spicy, slow cooked barbecue leg of lamb that I had at Twickenham that, like, legitimately it belonged in a good restaurant, and that's unusual in stadia where you can actually go and remember the food, and think about that, that cherry roasted beetroot or something. It doesn't really exist in other stadiums. It's really more schlepping the bar food in a hurry down an assembly line, and you're not looking at burrata and holy mackerel like you do at Twickenham. So I was thinking about that, and I wondered, and I didn't know the model that you just described, but I know you also do things all week long. You can go, there's changing room meals, there's pitch side, you can rent it, you can have an occasion or a meeting. how are you keeping track of all that? Because it strikes me from a labor law area, it's a very flexing workforce. How do you know who you need, and how do you train them all and employ them?
Big question. So we obviously, the stadium needs to sweat the asset, right? So we have to have business all the way through, and we've got a huge amount of facilities to accommodate our match day, both hospitality, match day dignitaries and sponsors and the like. But we've also got to accommodate. We've got to use those spaces when the building's not in use for a match day, and that means we sell conferencing and banqueting and exhibitions and all sorts of events that want to come and have an event with us. We'll do absolutely anything at the venue as long as the space is suitable, and that comes with obviously a set of menus and a set of food products that go alongside that. So we employ a full-time brigade of chefs, and they work full-time with us across both production for match days, not just England rugby days, but all the other games that we do across the year. And it tends to be somewhere 20 to 25 pitch events a year. So they're working on the planning for that. But when we're not doing those 25 events, they're doing the delivery of the conferencing and events piece. And to give you a sense of scale, we're doing probably in the region of about 2,000 guests a week, spread across probably 20 or 30 different meetings and events, anything from a private meeting for 2 or 3 people to an exhibition for 1,000 and everything in between. We do graduations for 3,000 or 4,000. We do conventions and all sorts of things. So it keeps the guys busy, and it keeps us turning over and keeps the team fresh and being able to innovate then for the next match day and build that planning into their weekly activity.
So match day is roughly every fortnight, give or take. So a day of rugby is almost a novelty after two fairly busy weeks of events and conferences and things.
Yeah, I mean, our season is pretty squeezed up. So obviously we have our autumn internationals taking up most Saturdays in November. Then we do a couple of big events. We've got a big game at Christmas time, and then we move into the Six Nations. So that's our kind of really busy winter period. And then through the summer, we do one, like you said, every 2 to 3 weeks. There's a pitch event on through the summer months. And then when we hit August, September, it kind of quietens down just because of pitch renovation and getting the pitch back up and ready for the autumn series. So it's a pretty squeezed calendar. But yeah, you're right. When you put it into numbers, it's one every 2 or 3 weeks. So at busy periods, it really pushes the team hard to deliver.
You would still have inside the stadium. You would still have at the canteen, at the kiosk. You'd still have your standard stadium fare. You'd still have your pies, your hot dogs, your chips, that sort of thing. So, what's the process of getting from an idea to stock a product, and whether it's a drink, whether it's a food offering, whatever it might be? What's the process to get it from idea to point of sale on a game day? How involved is that?
It's over the years, it's evolved to being pretty simple. We work with some really incredible partners that have access to a lot of owner operator and street food vendors, and we go out into London in our downtime. We go out to street food markets. We go to other venues, and we see some of these operators, and some of them might be smaller, some of them might be larger established businesses. But we test the product, we see the reaction to whatever people are buying. Those.
This is good research.
But it's basically great. That you go up, you eat it, you pay for it, you see what it tastes like, and then you look at the venue and go, would that work? Yes, it would. And you go and talk to normally the owner, or the owner's son or daughter working on the unit, and you say, we'd like you to come to Twickenham. Here's my business card. Give us a call. And if they call, great, you get them in, and you give them a trial run on a couple of the smaller games in a position maybe at the venue that might not be as busy as some of the other positions. And if it works for everybody, then they want to come back, and we want them back, and you start moving them into a more and more popular location within the venue, and they become a regular. And over the years, we've had some regulars that have stayed for years and reinvented themselves a little bit. We've had some that have stayed for a season and decided it's not for them, or we've decided that actually the fans aren't reacting to that, and we go out and find a new product. Or it might still be a burger, but it's a burger by a different operator, and it's a different style, and it's a different menu, and we bring it in. And it keeps us fresh. And again, you go back to the market, or the supply and demand will kind of control itself. If it doesn't work, fans don't eat it, the operator won't want to be there, and we won't want them there. So it's a very easy conversation to say thanks, but we tried and didn't work, and we'll go with someone else. And then the guys get a good day out to go and taste a few burgers or, you know, some Greek street food or whatever the case may be, and find a new operator. But that's how it works. And then we work with some partners that have relationships with these guys that keep them busy at other events, you know, horse racing and motor racing and other rugby and soccer stadiums, and they become regulars with those suppliers, and we rotate them around the venue for depending on who's coming, the time of year, etc. So yeah, it's not a bad job. It's tough trying all this food, but you know, we get through it.
So rugby fans are notoriously more hungry and thirsty, well, certainly than football fans. The famous story, this is anecdotal, but I think it's maybe even apocryphal, but in Marseille, they undersold the Scotland-South African game by multiples. It turns out that they just could not, they had no idea, the French, that people would want to eat standing, walking around, milling around, because the French idea of sitting down at a table, and having this wonderful feast didn't really translate. Even after the game, it's like, oh, we're not open, it's Sunday. And so have you seen in your research that, you know, that rugby fans eat more and drink more than other sporting fans?
Well, and do they eat more or less after a win? Like, does the result change consumption?
Depends if we call a Guinness a food or not, but you know, that's probably for the next chat. But
yeah,
it is food. Yes, they definitely eat more than, but they eat a lot of Guinness at the end of the game, particularly if we win. So, yeah, rugby fans. Again, Twickenham slightly benefits against soccer venues and some of the smaller venues, because you can walk all the way around the stadium, right? So you can come in one gate, and once you're into our West Van Village, you're in a festival environment, and you've got multiple options and music stages, and you can navigate the whole stadium around. So that really drives people into the venue early, because there is space, and you can meet up with friends even if you're not sitting in the same part of the stadium, or you know, you haven't come together.
Yes.
You can meet up.
Yeah, because in football, like at Anfield, you are in a block, you're in a cell, and you cannot deviate from that particular block. Right? So the visiting fans rugby, cannot mill. Yeah.
So in rugby, we don't have any away ends or home end. It's all mixed. The crowd is mixed, and so you've got access to the whole stadium, and that allows you to put on more entertainment. And you can have, you know, we call it the West Van Village, but it's like, you know, the American tailgate, I guess, if you like, with sponsors doing activations and food units and a music stage, and you know, Guinness then put up nearly a 40-meter bar in there with a significant amount of tills and taps to service the Guinness kind of demand, and that really brings people into the stadium, because the restaurants and pubs and things outside the venue get full, and once they're full, you've got nowhere to go. So 80,000 people, probably, you know, 70,000 of those have to come into the venue nice and early, and that's what drives our hunger, if you like. You come in, you're there for 2 hours before the game, you've got 2 hours of the game, and then we're open for 2 hours post game, which is unusual in sport, particularly in the UK.
I was going to ask that. Yeah. Certainly in Australia, my experience is that most stadia want you out pretty close to full time so they can get on with cleaning up, basically. So I was going to ask that. Are you actively encouraging people to hang around and have that post game beer and pie and start your post-mortem here in the ground?
Absolutely, and we put on entertainment to encourage it. So we put on, we've got probably 5 or 6 singers and artists playing music all around the stadium. We've got a big stage in our West Van Village that a band goes on. If there's a kickoff post our game, and often there's, you know, 2 or 3 rugby games happening in and around the same time, we'll showcase that game on the big screen as well. So and that's a few reasons. One, it drives value into the ticket holder, right? So they're getting more for their money. 2, the local transport network, and if you've been to Twickenham, Harry, it's a bit of a pain to get out of, and to get onto the train with 80,000 people is a pain. So we encourage people to have a good time, stay with us while the crowds disperse, and then it just creates a better exit journey for everybody else. And you know, that just adds value to the whole experience and keeps the local residents happy. The streets aren't as busy with traffic, and the trains can cope with a drip feed of people leaving the venue rather than shutting gate, kicking everyone out, which seems
it's a good point. That one choke point's really rough into the train station, and I was there for the England-Ireland match. It was literally one of the first times post-COVID, when COVID was reopening, people were coming over from Europe just to be around, London. And so I was more sensitized to the idea of being in a giant crowd packed in. And you can really get packed in. And so the idea, I never thought about it on the concert post, Stade Francais does that, Durban does that. It's also spaces out the crowd. And I always wondered, well, is it kind of a deal breaker if your team loses? Do you want to hang around for a concert? And apparently Stade Francais says, absolutely. No, people don't care. And maybe it's giving people more reasons to come to rugby than just rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, people are looking. There's so much choice to spend your money, right? You don't have to buy a rugby ticket. You don't have to go to a sports event anymore. You can go throw axes at a pub, and you can go do all sorts of things now at places that you couldn't do even just before COVID, right? So in the last 3 or 4 years, the experiential entertainment market has just exploded, and so people have an option of where they go and where they spend their money. So the sport is one thing, and relying on a team to always win to create that feel-good factor is a bad business case, right? So you can't rely on the team to always win on the pitch. So you've got to create that atmosphere and create the value around a ticket as a whole to make people want to come to the rugby regardless of what the team is doing on the pitch. And clearly people want to see a winning team, and it really adds to the atmosphere. But you guys are rugby fans. The winner needs to be rugby, not a team. There needs to be a really good competitive game. And most rugby fans, if your team's been competitive and they're given a damn good go, they don't mind a 1 point loss, or it hurts. But reality is, you shake the guy's hand next to you and you go, "Well played." That was a good game. You don't see that in some of the other sports, and I think that really drives that camaraderie post match, where people will have a beer with the visiting team or the away team or just your fellow rugby fans, drown your sorrows, see what's happening, moan about the coach and move on, right?
Yeah,
so exactly. But I think that's all part of the package, and I think food helps that. If you're there and there's the availability of good food and there's availability of a nice cold beer and you don't have to wait in a long queue, go for it.
So do you wish sometimes that the rugby match was actually longer and had more breaks, counter to this rush to make rugby quicker? Do you kind of go, yeah, we could sell better and have a little more breaks, and maybe
let's have half an hour half time.
I mean, half time's never long enough, right? And international, it's 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes, not 10 minutes at some of the other games. But so we definitely benefit from that extra 5 minutes. But if you think most people have had a beer before the game, most people, you can drink in the bowl in rugby, unlike soccer in the UK or Europe. So people have had a beer, they need the loo. So it's a couple of minutes to get out your seats and get to the concourse. It's then a bit of a queue to get through the toilets, and then you want to top back up and have another beer. So we do find that time runs away with us, and it takes us about almost between 5 and 10 minutes into the first half to get everyone served and they get back into the seats. And clearly lots of fans don't like that because there's movement in the bowl, but you're servicing what people want. So if we could make half time half an hour, it would be great. Probably only need 20 minutes, but half an hour would be brilliant. Yeah.
So I'm famously a man of the people, and so I'm interested in your lower tier suites. What does that go for? Just shock me with a sticker price.
I was going to say, let's get into the Twickenham Experience, because this sounds like something completely different.
Panoramic views.
So we've got in 2018 we expanded the stadium and we added our east stand, and we added a load of capacity into our hospitality or our premium offer, and we added different tiering within that. So you can go to our Rose Garden package, which is kind of street food done premium. So homemade pizzas, street food offer, loads of beer, a 3-piece band on a stage in the venue, and depending on the game you come from, you can buy that for 2 times the cost of a ticket, maybe. So it's your ticket plus the same again, and you'll get an all-inclusive bar and all your food and kind of 4 hours of entertainment around the game as well. So
which is actually pretty good.
Now that price climbs a bit as you get to the more premium games, and go back to my model of supply and demand. When there's less supply or there's more demand, the price goes up, right? So that package can go up to £700-800 a head, and for a really good experience. But then you've got the other end of the scale where we have our East Wing product, and that's a Michelin star chef. We normally pick someone that's got more than 1 star and is servicing 800 odd people.
I'm sorry, Gordon. I'm sorry, Gordon. We can't use you at Twickenham this week. You haven't got enough stars.
Absolutely. So that's a 5-course taster meal. We had this for the Scotland game just gone. We had Exmoor caviar tasters as people came in. Champagne's flowing all day. You have cocktails, obviously Guinness free flowing, choice of fine wines, and Michelin star catering with the chef in the room. You know, he's walking around the room, he or she walking around the room and talking to people about the food. Couple that then with a sommelier who's picked the wine for you to try, and you can talk to the sommelier about some other options. It's a really good experience, right? And you can do that in a room. It seats nearly 1,000 people, but it's individual tables of 2, tables of 4. You've got windows that overlook the pitch. You've got windows the other side overlooking London. It's a really elevated experience. And when we open that, it is for the premium games, and you know that level of experience comes at a higher price. So it'll range from kind of £1,000 up to £1,500-1,600 a head, which sounds absolutely ludicrous.
But what a wonderful marketing tool, though, for the business interests of London. I mean, you're taking your clients there. You're having a big ball time. Yeah,
and that's the market, right? It's people that want to entertain. It's people that want to come out and have a good time, and but not just the corporates. We're seeing a huge amount of people who just want that different experience, and they'll come with partner or friend and just come and enjoy that overall experience, and just enjoy rugby alongside that. So, and then we have everything kind of in between. Tom Kerridge is a resident chef of ours. He sits in our Lock restaurant. He does a very similar thing. You know, it's Michelin star quality food. It's post-match pies, but just with a difference. And but that's again, it's a similar thing. 4 or 5 courses, matched wines, amuse bouches. It's the other end of food, and it's probably, I would say, the best food, at least in Europe, at a venue. That's without a doubt. And we do that across nearly 14,000 people at a full house. We have 14,000 in premium hospitality is a big number, and probably not one that's done at that level anywhere in the world.
I had a really good pie and a can of Coke standing up at my sideline radio vantage point last weekend, Niles. That's premium.
Well, as long as the can of Coke was cold, you're on a winner.
Yeah, it was.
No, but Brett, imagine with our friend Chucky, and you're looking over him and like, hey, how are the chips there? You know, you got some tomato sauce with your chips, and he's like, I'm eating the suggestion of potatoes a la Michelin.
Niles, talk to us then about a Six Nations week. What does that look like for you? How busy is it? Are we talking 70, 80, 100 hours? Like talk us through that week, because I can imagine that is pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, the planning for an international series starts months, right? And the chefs, gone are the days where you just phone up a supplier and you order your produce and it just turns up.
Yeah.
Right? That's
we want 3 tons of frozen chips.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. But if you think at Scotland, we did venison. We had venison on some of our premium spaces, and we're using kind of 2 tons of venison, not a few steaks, right? It's big quantity. Yeah. So you need to engage with your suppliers really early, and I'm talking, go back to the farmer, and in some cases we're talking to them about whole herds, and making sure that what we're buying is being raised at the right time to be used at the right time. And absolutely. And it's not just about going to local supermarket and buying a few bits. It's properly thinking about that supply chain from the spring all the way through to autumn, and dealing with your cheesemonger who's got to make cheese that's got to be matured in time at the volume that you need it. And we don't use the same cheeses every match, right? So you've got to have this continuous thought process. Well, I don't, to be fair. The chefs have this continuous thought process of what are we using, who's making it, what is the best, right? And we've challenged the chefs over the last few years to really innovate. So we've got to move with the times, and sustainability is high up on the agenda. And if we're going to serve meat, we've got to make sure it's high welfare. So we use really good producers that, we've mentioned the venison. There will be wild venison or from farms that haven't had human interaction at all. They're completely organic, and we're using this venison because we don't want to buy in produce that is not being treated fairly. And by doing that, you might be paying a slight more premium, but we want to serve the best, and we charge for it. So it needs to be the best and needs to come with some ethics behind it. So the guys are really pushing it out there. And then we do some other things. We make all our desserts in-house, but we challenge the chefs to make them all vegan. So, reduce our footprint on the earth, don't use dairy.
Plant-based milk, yeah.
Plant-based milk. So, they use all sorts of scientific trickery to get the produce out. But when you're talking about, I said we can do 14,000 people on a match day. We have multiple offers that go through. So the chefs might be making 8,000 or 10,000 items 2 or 3 times over because of choices on menus, because of variety within the venue. So it's not a small feat. So, you ask how long does it take? It takes months, but it's continuous. You never really stop. And we finished the autumns. We're in the middle of Six Nations. We've gone on sale already for the autumn internationals in 2025. So the guys now are thinking about their menus. They're writing the menus. What worked well? What didn't? What's in the supply chain? Who can we go and talk to about our fish product for next year? And we start sending our executive chef out to meet. He's been on boats in Cornwall going out to see the fish, so he knows what fish is right. Wow. He's talking to the fisherman, not the fishmonger, about what fish is good. So we know that when we talk to the fishmonger, we know that Bob the fisherman suggests we go for this, and we want that fish at that time of year. So it's a big project. And that's just the food, right? All that food gets served on plates and cutlery and glass and all the things that come with it. So the team planned for months. It is a well-oiled machine, so sometimes we take it a bit for granted, but it works. And the guys, we have Arctic lorries full of equipment turning up in the 2 weeks before. We have a small army of people that come and prepare the areas, and then the chefs are beavering away for 2 or 3 weeks, if not longer, before that, and preparing everything they need. And come game day, we employ nearly 350 chefs. The same in management. They all come in before, obviously the day before, and make sure their final prep is ready. And then we have an army of nearly 3,000 staff that come in on a match day. And then the only way to describe it is the same as if I asked you to eat an elephant, you'd have to take one bite at a time, right? You couldn't swallow the whole thing. So you break down the stadium into.
Good question.
You break the stadium down into 100 parts, and you have a team looking after each one of those parts. And as long as we've given them the information and everything's ready for them, they deliver. It's 100 different restaurants being delivered at the same time, just unknown to each other. So that's a
big scale.
A small snapshot in what happens, but
Can you give us an idea of raw numbers? So like how many pies are we talking? How many hundreds of thousands of liters of beer? How many bottles of wine? How many tons of chips are we talking about?
How many Madeira glazed ducks have died?
Madeira glazed ducks. We don't do the same menu everywhere because that's right. Would be too much of a drain on the supply chain. But you talk some big numbers. If you think, if we had use some round numbers, if we had 10,000 people in, which is a common number. Each one of those will have 5 courses. So, you're talking about 50,000 plates. Forget what's going on the plates. You're talking 50,000 plates. Each one of those plates has 2 cutleries. So you're talking 100,000 bits of cutlery. So you start getting a sense of the scale of what's required. And a lot of people will walk into these venues and facilities at any stadium or high volume thing and look at a plate and some cutlery on the table, but not scale it in their head. And if you put 100,000 knives and forks together, it's a big piece, right?
I'm having a thought about the dishwashing.
Yeah,
like you must have dishwashers for miles.
I'm thinking of a new brand, which is the Cabbage Patch, the world's largest Michelin restaurant.
That's it. Yeah, it is a big task, and but yeah, so we use huge volumes, huge volumes of milk, huge volumes of red wine. Most people that come into premium will drink half bottle of red wine at least on average. So you can start doing the numbers, right? It's 5,000 bottles of red wine or wine that we're servicing to 10,000 people. It just, so you just take every product and you got to multiply it. And so,
and you're just talking about the Twickenham experience, the hospitality areas. So
exactly.
scale
So then you
things
move
up.
to
Obviously out in the seats, you're not using cutlery and plates and things like that. But the food offer, it's enormous.
Yeah. So out in the concourses, about 50 to 60% of people will have a whole meal. So a burger and chips is something. So you're talking about 40,000 odd meals going out from the GA concourses. So again, it's big volumes for burgers. But we touched on Guinness earlier, or beer at Twickenham, and we are known for serving a lot of beer. Guinness is a key part of rugby. It always has been, always will be a key part of rugby. And we'll serve north of 200,000 pints of beer.
Wow.
The majority of that will be Guinness.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Harry can't remember most of them that he drinks, so
I
but
could
there's a
give
lot
you
of it.
20 of those in one. Oh, no, this is good.
Wow.
Hey, Nils Braude, I've got 2 questions. They're both incriminating. So you can take the 5th if you want. First one is, did you or did you not, knowing that Finn Russell is an avid venison eater and he's particularly beguiled by the smell of truffles, did you cause a waft of air to go across his nose when he was taking that conversion, rendering him incapable of balance and taking it from 2 meters farther out and missing?
I couldn't tell you.
Not a denial.
That's not a no. That's not a no.
Niall does not denial. Okay. And so the second one is so that you must have a cellar in the bottom of Twickenham. You're not schlepping all those wine bottles in on a weekly basis, are you?
No, we do have a cellar, and again we've got North Times, a supplier just down the road from us that stores a lot of our wine for us. But
Right,
yeah,
we got to get into the
comes
cellar.
in and it moves around. You got to come. It's special.
Excellent.
I can't get over there next weekend, but let's work on. We've got to get into this.
A visit to the Twickenham cellar. Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah.
We can just rock up to the northwest gate and just drop your name, Niles. That'll be fine. We can.
Yeah, I'm sure the guys will know exactly who I am. Yeah, you just. Yeah.
At which point then? Yeah, I'm absolutely doing that. At which point then do you get to sit down after a match game, match week, match month, and just have a satisfied beer and go, we got through this?
Yeah, we come together. We don't watch the game. Everyone goes, "Oh, you're so lucky to work at the stadium and you get to see all this rugby." And unfortunately, we see the highlights when you get home, right? Because you're busy before, you're really busy during. There's a lot of talking to customers, to staff, to people around the venue. So we go and enjoy in the second half. Most of us go and get something to eat from one of the street food vendors. We take it back to the office. We have a quick get together as a senior team that have been around the ground for most of the day, and we try and watch the last 10 or 15 minutes of the match, because that's everyone's.
I was going to ask, do you actually know the score?
At that point, until we sit down there, not really. You hear the cheers, and you know whether it's a home cheer or an away cheer. Your ears tuned into, oh, that's an England try, or that's a Scotland try, or whoever the opponent is. So you kind of get a sense of who's winning by the crowd noise. But certainly we come back, watch on the TV for the last 10 or 15 minutes, take a break, talk to the guys, make sure everyone's knows what's happening, and then we're back out for post match, just doing the rounds again. And so your final feats up beer is actually back at home. Stick the highlights on the telly and have a beer going. Oh,
yeah.
It's Twickenham's no cash, right? It's everything digital payments at this point. Yeah,
we have been since 2017 or so. We went completely
pre-COVID even. Yeah, right.
So how quickly do you know how good a night it was?
I mean, obviously we're a big venue, right? So we've got a lot of resource. We've got a full team watching that all the time. So everything's digital. We've got the same till network across all of our vendors and across all of our estate. So we know we get a report every 10 minutes. If I'm honest, it comes through with what our revenue are. So we know, if anyone's struggling, we know if if anyone needs attention, we know, and we know the numbers every 10 minutes.
Right.
So
Cut the price on the trout pastrami. It's not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, it's a well-oiled machine. So yeah,
it really has been a fascinating chat, Niles. I've learnt so much. It's opened my eyes to so many things. I'm almost certainly not going to view food and drink offerings at a stadium the same now. You've ruined that for me probably, but this has just been fascinating. Like, is it from your point of view? It must help to be able to get this story out and to help people understand what actually goes into it.
Oh, absolutely. I think we're probably the work or the best kept secret there is in rugby. And obviously we have a huge amount of people that know about Twickenham, but there are so many people that come to us for the first time every week or every time we have a match, and they walk in and they go, wow. And even, conferencing and events business, people walk out the changing rooms or onto the pitch and they have that wow moment. So, I still get it. I've been in sport 25 years, and every time you walk pitch side in a stadium, whether it's empty or full, you get a wow factor. And I think the more people that experience that, if you possibly can get a ticket and go to any sporting event, do it. Rugby is special because it just has that camaraderie around it, and it has that kind of friendly atmosphere, and you can just enjoy the whole atmosphere. You can bring your kids and not worry that there's going to be any problems. You can be with the visiting teams, you can have some banter with your opponents. It just works, and rugby's got that special little added bit of value that some sports seem to miss. I won't name soccer at all.
What's also amazing about Twickenham is the long continuous play at one place and then continually modernizing. So is there anything coming up around the corner in the next few years that you're working on that's going to, wow, or are we looking at what it's going to be for a while?
Yeah, I mean, it's been in the paper, so you would have read about, we call it the Stadium Master Plan. What is Twickenham in the next 5, 10, 15, 25, 30 years from now? And, it needs to change. We mentioned the experience is important to people. Getting value for money for your ticket prices are only going up. You need to do something with that. So, a lot of focus on growing the women's game. If you've been to Twickenham, the toilet provision is terrible for both men and women, but particularly for women. So we have to address some of those real key fundamental customer experience pieces, right? So we need to expand our concourses. We need to put better facilities in for everybody, but particularly focusing on women coming to the venue. We need to diversify that offer a little bit. So we need to add value, and so we're looking to expand parts of the stadium to do exactly that, make the experience better, make the overall facility, just modernize it. Parts of that stadium was built back in the early 1900s, and it's grown up around it ever since. So I think there's a huge modernization piece required. That's the plan. We're looking at it now. How do you further premiumize the premium? How do you make the GA, the general general admission areas, better? How do you provide better access all around? How do you be a better partner in the community? All these things are being looked at, and I think you'll see over the next every World Cup cycle, that fourth year where we don't have that many internationals at the stadium, we'll look to do a bit of development, and that starts hopefully with a bit of luck in the 27 down season. But it's all to play for, and a lot of that thinking is going in now. The RFU, or the stadium can't afford to do it all at once, so it'll be done in phases, which is why it's a long-term plan. So it'll just be chipping away at it, and I probably won't be there to see the finish of it, and hopefully our kids will be enjoying the fruits of our labour when they go to the venue.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's the plan.
No, this has been a great chat. Thank you so much for giving us some time. It is a busy period. You've got another busy week coming up next week, obviously with Italy coming to Twickers. But it's been fantastic to get this sort of insight from you. Thanks so much for it.
No worries. Quick question: who's winning the Six Nations?
It's probably going to be Ireland, but there is a permutation here where England, France, and Ireland are all at 15 points after this next round.
It's been to watch it even from this far. It has been a really, really enjoyable tournament. So I hope you get to see some next weekend.
Yeah,
buy some more burrata. The Italians are coming, man.
The Italians are coming. Yep, absolutely. Thanks, gents.
Thanks so
Cheers.
much, Niles. Thanks. This is the 8-9 Combo with Brett McKay and Harry Jones. And, mate, that was such a great chat with Nils Braude. I got so much out of that. I'm so hungry.
You're salivating. I can, you can just, you're exuding hunger now. But all I will say is there's about 487 reasons why rugby is the best sport. But this is one of them. We have the best food. We have the best people. Niles is such a smart boy. Just planning. There's almost like there's a Machiavellian approach to food. We got Michelin stars. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I will just say, I didn't do all that stuff when I was at Twickenham, but I ate like a king. It was beautiful.
Yeah. And just the fact that I love that a lot of their, stadium offering is now built around street food and private vendors and all that. And so that's
Smart.
actually... Yeah, and you can change it up, and there's actually an opportunity for them to grow within as well. So I just think that's so cool.
Well, I hadn't thought about it. Is that how that pride of ownership drives quality? Because rugby fans are notoriously loyal too. So once you can make that connection, and 2,000 people from Southwest London love you. They love you all the time. Yeah. They'll come to High Street as well. Like you're basically getting an entire audience locked in.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was such a good chat. I hope you got so much out of it. You'll have noticed by now that the guest program has moved to midweek, like it is here now, and we're kicking off the rugby week now each week with the weekend post-mortem, looking back at all the big games and the big results each weekend. That's usually out Sunday night, Monday morning, depending on where you are in the rugby world and when we record it. Games of the week, mate. It's time to get into that. And
there's only one game this week.
But yeah, we'll get to it. Super Rugby this weekend. I think the three Saturday games are the one to look at there. Chiefs Brumbies in Hamilton, Hurricanes Blues in Wellington, even Force Reds in Perth has got an extra element to it now as a bit of a blockbuster Australian game. I think the pick is probably Chiefs Brumbies to see for how long can the Chiefs continue on this run of theirs, and to what degree of bounce back is there now for the Brumbies, because they've got the Blues the following week. They need to bring one win at least home from New Zealand to them. So that's going to be a really interesting game, I think, for that one. That's first against fifth after 2 rounds for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, well, it's the best. I mean, clearly the best Australian team over the 7-8 years against this up-and-coming rising force Chiefs. That's got to be the one we all want to watch, because it will give us more of a benchmark than prior.
For both teams,
Waratah's Highlanders gives you something, but it doesn't give you what this gives you. This gives you perhaps a gulf, or I think we're always fascinated by how big the gap is. This gives our first early read.
I think we know where the Chiefs are, but where are the Brumbies? Really. So that's a fair question. It's round 12 of the United Rugby Championship, the IRC. A big long list of games there. The three that I'm sort of interested in are Munster Edinburgh on Friday night. That's 5th against 9th. Leicester Cardiff on Saturdays, 1st against 6th, and then I'm quite sure you'll be keeping an eye on Bulls Stormers in Pretoria.
It's the only match of the round. The Bulls and Stormers. One of the great derbies, going back to Northern Transvaal, Western Province, Blue Bulls, Western Province. It's transmogrified into, the IRC. But it's the same old. The Bulls are riding high. They're the better midfield. They're the better scrum. They have the better lineouts. They have the better plan. They have a better record. The problem that for them all season long is because they've been wasteful, a bit like Scotland a week ago, in that they get into the 22, but absent a proper fly-off, they didn't get anywhere. So they've named a 10.5 fly-off, as Johan Joubert said. Johan Jordan said, which is LaRue is going back to his school day roots, and he's playing number 10. And it didn't look like it worked. So, they're massive overdogs. And, listen, the Stormers are going to be lucky to be alive if we can just stay on the pitch. That being said, if we can win, at Loftus. It's going to be
That
like
would be something.
Michelin star rugby, baby. Yeah.
that would set up the season, certainly. Round 18 of the top 14 in France. The two that I like the look of there, Montpellier Castres on Saturday is 9th against 5th, but Montpellier can climb into the 8th if they win. Castres can maybe edge into the top 4 if they win. So that's sort of what I'm thinking about that one. And then the last one there, Bayonne Clermont, is 4th against 6th. Have you got a pick in amongst all those games?
No, because my policy about top 14 during the Six Nations Fellow Week, because of the weirdnesses, like Jalibert and Penaud are not allowed to play, but then someone else is. I kind of take a break from it and wait for it to resume normal operations.
Yeah.
But that, I did a Harry Index because I felt ashamed because you said I hadn't done one, and that's not fair because I was letting the Blues be in there for so long. And so I thought on reflection,
you've gone cold on them, haven't you?
But they had to slip because of the two. They were okay on the first loss, but then they had to go down. So, what I've reflected is that the Super Rugby contingent is now led by the Chiefs. I think that's undeniable.
No.
And not something people predicted before the season, because how would we know?
Certainly not.
But I think the top 14 is a very strange and squirrely competition during Six Nations, especially when you have their obsession with not really caring about away matches. And so it's a completely different mentality.
Or at
just
home,
got to win your home
or
matches.
At home now. Or at home now, as La Rochelle showed last week.
La Rochelle.
So, yeah. In Japan,
Nick Bishop on Rugby Pass, your colleague, put a wonderful article out about the differences in the percentage of home wins by league, and pointing out that the top 14 it's like 10 or 12% higher than all the other leagues on home win. So you just have to win your home matches.
Yeah. No, it's more than fair. Japan Rugby League 1 up to week 11, and it's a funny sort of week. Down toward the bottom of there, you can see Toshiba Brave Lupus v Kubota Spears, and that's 2nd v 3rd. And that'll be a good game. The two I'm really interested in this week are actually the bottom end of the table. Mitsubishi Dynaboars v Black Rams Tokyo. That's at the Chichibu Stadium. That's 9th v 10th. So that's got relegation zone implications. Urayasu D-Rocks v Toyota Verblitz. That's 12th against 11th. And so the Verblitz haven't been going great of late. They've really slid down the rankings. Urayasu's sort of battled since they were promoted this year. But that's, I think, a really interesting game with big implications for both teams. So I'll be keen to see how that plays out.
It's a really weird name, Verblitz. It's so South African for a Japanese team.
Yes, it is.
Second, the graphic you just showed, it's so interesting. It looks like it could be a ballot for an election, or it could be a design for some kind of rocket.
Yeah.
I like the Japanese way of going about things.
The confession there is that some of these graphics are just social media tiles. Some of them I have to just snip out of a website. So in the Japan case,
don't get us in trouble with Japan.
Well, they put their social media tiles out earlier. I could use them, couldn't they? Major League Rugby. What are we up to? Is it round 3? I think.
San
I've lost count.
Diego
Something like
Legion.
that. The goddamn Houston Sabercats playing Seattle Seawolves in Houston on Saturday. That's 2nd v 5th in the Western Conference, but it's the grand final replay. So I think that's an interesting one. Chicago Hounds v New England Free Jacks on Sunday is 5th against 3rd in the East and in the Eastern Conference. It'll be Houston Seattle's the one to watch this weekend. Yeah.
That's the
grand
one.
final.
Yeah.
Grand final replays are always interesting, I think. So, we'll see how that plays. We're not going to talk too much about the Harry Index this week. We might put that on hold and bring it up next week after another round of things. But I think, mate, unless you have something else to add for the week, have we covered everything?
Let's go eat.
I'm so hungry. I'm gonna have to go and have another breakfast. That then is
thanks,
another
Niles.
great.
That was amazing.
Yeah. Thanks so much to Nils Braude for joining us for another great episode of the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast. Don't forget to be sure to find and follow the 8-9 Combo on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Blue Sky as well to keep up with all of our movements. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you can, and share us as far and wide as well. And Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places as well, obviously at Harry Baldy Jones at BMC Sport. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed in a rugby podcast. Sean Maloney is locked and loaded and ready in the closer. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears with the weekend post-mortem.
Come and dine with us.
Here goes Jones with another bruising run. He links up with McKay, who pops back to Jones. They can't. They won't. They will. What a try. The Dream Team Combo go in again.